useful for you to do your catching up on the work and doing revision and all of those sorts of things. Good to see you all, team. Fantastic. It is Monday morning again. Comes around quite quickly. It is a short week this week, as I was just explaining. You have 3 days this week. I have 4 because we have a teacher-only day on the Thursday. Now, it's been quite an interesting weekend, and you will be aware of it. I posted in the classroom, and school has sent you, I guess, messages as well, that the CMCO is continuing. So we're going to be doing this distance learning thing for a bit longer. All right, it might be, there's a chance that it might be for the rest of this term, okay, that we're doing the distance learning thing. And yeah, that's not what any of us want. So we're just going to have to, try and make the best of it and keep as positive as we can and try not to annoy mum and dad and, all of those sorts of things would be good. All right. One of the key things for you all, because you're in year 11, is your mock exams. Now, the school is very keen for you to sit a mock exam as like a real exam. So sitting it in the school in the exam conditions with, all of that sort of additional pressure, etc. on you. So they have pushed your exam, your mock exam back, as you're aware, because it's been publicised. Now it looks like your mock exam will be in January. Okay, so that's really good. All right, that gives you a really good amount of time, including over the Christmas break, to do some really good preparation. What that means is that we will need to continue on with our discovery of the syllabus and the topics within. All right, and it also means that your mock exam will be slightly bigger than it would have been. I say bigger, it will just contain more content. All right, so instead of me adding in multiple copies of questions, okay, I will have more of one whole topic, okay, because you will have covered more work. So there will be more, not more questions, just more work. Yeah, if that makes sense. All right. And it also means that next term, okay, because next term, therefore, the very first thing that you'll have when you come back is your mocks. So you'll come straight back, assuming we're back at school, you'll come straight back into exams. And then after the exams, it will be feedback, on the exams, right? And then it will be working through the last topic. So if we do this sort of as the normal way, there will be one major topic left after your mock exam, as opposed to 1.5, which is what it would have been. And so you'll have one topic left, and then that will be it, and then it will just be straight revision from there, right, before your finals. Now, I can't say, I don't know what the predictions are going forward with regards to distance learning and all of those sorts of things. Please be aware the Year 12 sat their pathway exam. They did it online, all right? So there is the possibility of us setting you exams and doing them digitally, all right, which isn't much fun, got to admit, for you, but there is the possibility of that, okay? So do be aware of that. Right, and if that happens, that happens. Okay, it's quite a good software program that they use, actually. It's called exams.net. All right, and when you do a practice paper, practice question, which will be coming up next week, you're going to do a practice question for paper 2 on international trade, and that question will be in exams.net, but I will explain more to you about that as to how that will work, just so that you get practice with it, because you never know, you might use it. No, you never know. All right, so today we're going to continue on. Now, I have posted in the classroom the link to the Nearpod, so we're going to go and have a go at the Nearpod. We're going to be looking at something slightly different today, new subtopic. Where is Nearpod? Here it is. So in the classroom, you should have CF S3E. CF S3E should be the code. And as per normal, the code appears in the top left-hand corner of the screen. So if you jump into here, that would be fantastic. There's a few of you there already. And if the rest can jump in too, that would be great. Right, so we're going to be looking at something called the exchange rates. quite often we codify this. We use a little shorthand code. So ER isn't emergency room in economics. It is exchange rate. ER, exchange rate. And sometimes you might actually see it written up in textbooks as ERM. That's exchange rate mechanism, which means how exchange rates work, ERM. There's another short code that you see there, and I've listed it on the title. It's this one. It says FX, okay? That's not the movie industry code for special effects. No, 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 no. No, in economics, we use that particular code for foreign exchange. We've just kind of jammed it all together, all right? So you've got foreign exchange. Now, that's quite important because sometimes you see FX written up in, again, in news articles, or you might see it in textbooks, etc., or they might talk about it on the news. And sometimes they'll talk about it as the Forex market, as in foreign exchange, F-O-R-E-X, Forex. So when they're talking about the foreign exchange market, that's what they're talking about, the Forex market. Or if they're talking about the Forex market, they're talking about foreign exchange. Now, you should all be very comfortable and very familiar with this idea of the exchange rate, okay, and foreign exchange, because you've traveled. You've been from one place, you've gone and traveled to somewhere else, and they've got a different currency, perhaps. All right, maybe you've done it several times. All right, it might be that your family has bank accounts in different parts of the world, and you move money around. It might be that you've gone online to Amazon in Singapore, and you've ordered something, or you've ordered something and it's had to come from China, and you've had to pay for it. All right, any of those things, there are exchange rates involved. And you are much more familiar with that than somebody who might have, say, lived in one city in one country for their entire life and have never left. And remember, there's a group of Americans who don't even have passports because they've never left the small town that they lived in, right, ever. They've never traveled. By the way, woohoo, Joe Biden, excellent, fantastic. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, these are specific things we're going to need to be doing. We're going to need to be figuring out what exchange rates are and how they actually work. Now, it may not have been something that you considered when you were at the airport, all right, changing your South Korean won into Malaysian ringgit or vice versa, but it is something that you are going to need to know. How does it actually work? And the next one here is, what happens if there are changes to that exchange rate? What is the economic effect of that? And it can be pretty dramatic, right? So that's more the higher level thinking aspect of it. Tiny little bit of maths here, as you can probably imagine as well. So firstly, definition time. An exchange rate is the price of one currency measured in terms of another. The price of one country's currency measured in terms of another one. Now, you'll notice it's kind of one of those definitions that's almost in two parts. Price of one currency in terms of another currency. So the examiner is going to want to see basically both halves of this definition here. They're going to want to see one currency in terms of another currency. Right, that's a really important part, and it's a bit of a trap for young players because you yourself, because you're familiar with this idea of an exchange rate, oh, it's just the price of dollars, isn't it? All right, and that trap is where some young people will fall, and therefore they won't get this full marks for this particular definition. Measured in terms of another currency. So therefore, fill in the gaps. Where you go. Won't take long. Missing a couple today. All right, good. Come on, Amy, here we go. Come on, Sonny. Come on, Delta. You can do it. Good work, Sonny. Wait a couple of seconds. Josh Earn's in there twice for some reason.
Yeah, I disconnected just now. My computer crashed.
Zarfan okay? Does anybody know? Hopefully he is. Here we go. Answers. Delta, Amro, you going to have a go? Good. So definition-wise, the exchange rate is the price of one currency measured in terms of another. Very crucial definition. Now, what I would like you to do, this is part of my campaign, really, to encourage you to consider real-life examples. Right? The more you can attach your theory to the real world, the more you are going to find it makes sense, but also the more you're going to be able to include the real world into your answers and therefore show the examiner that you really do understand what's going on. So my thought is that you could choose some exchange rates, some real ones that you might be interested in, say the South Korean won or the Malaysian ringgit, yeah, and actually track it, right? Have a table and see what happens to it over time. You don't have to do it every day, you know, just do it once a week to see where it is this week, to see if it has changed, okay? So I will remind you of that idea. All right, so here's a visual example of the sorts of graphs, the diagrams that can be used to illustrate exchange rates. Now this one here is the pound sterling, so the UK pound sterling and the German mark. All right. Now, if we have a look, right, this particular point in here is quite significant. And I don't know that you'll be able to see the dates particularly much here. But at one point, because what we're facing at the moment is some quite scary and quite unusual economic circumstances. So if you are familiar with the UK at the moment, one of the big questions they are wrestling with is this idea of Brexit, right, and what might or might not happen. Right, and how to actually do it. Well, one of the reasons why they are so, there's so much feeling involved with them discussing Brexit and worried about Europe and how we're going to get out of it and what's, you know, because it is quite scary. But the UK have actually done this before, right? A few years ago, the UK joined Europe. They actually joined a part of Europe called the European Economic Community. And at the time, they actually joined their currency, right, as well. And as a result of joining their currency, they were very heavily embedded within Europe. But at one point, then they left, and they left the European Economic Community, and they left the money, the currency of Europe. Right, they pulled completely out of it. And as a result, they went back to being pound sterling, and it had a dramatic effect here on their currency, as you see. Big drop. And this is actually, I don't know, again, I don't know if you can see the dates here, but you are talking about a time period that people are, well, it's within people's lifetimes. So it's only 30 odd years ago that this all happened. So it is definitely within people's lifetimes, and it is also a situation where people remember. And so therefore there will be, I should say older people, right? There will be people in the UK who remember the catastrophic catastrophic situation that occurred all the way back then, and they are looking to Brexit going, oh no, right? And it also explains a lot about why it is that the UK was so hesitant to fully join Europe, is because they've actually got this experience as well. So that's a little bit of a history about of that in the Brexit situation. Now, this one here is more familiar to us because it's the Malaysian ringgit. And this is a illustration, again, graphical illustration of what you might see if you do a research for the different currencies, the exchange rates. And this is the Malaysian ringgit to the Indian rupee. And you can see that there is quite a big shift over this period of time. All right, this is 2009, a big shift, okay? All right, so that's the sort of graph you can see. Now, I've included in the slides, there's a couple of videos there that you can have a wee look at about exchange rates. Now, why do we think exchange rates are important? So you're going to have a few seconds to have a think about it. All right, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about it, because the next slide is going to be for you to put an answer down. So you've got about 30 seconds. Why do you think exchange rates are important? And then you're going to answer in there. Right, so about 30 seconds. Where you go. Okay, so have a go at answering. What are exchange rates and why are they important? Good idea, Joshua. Interesting. Right, Senna. Tom. Okay. Good work, good thinking. Another couple more to go. Good work, Farah. couple more to go. Right. Okay, so Liz, need an answer. Delta. It's very good, Liz. Another couple of seconds for Delta to have a go. Okay, good work, Delta. Right, so it's just my way of seeing what you know already, all right? Or in, maybe what Dr. Google knows. All right, so first things first, how do exchange rates actually work? So the first system that we have, the first mechanism, the first model that we're going to use to help us figure out this idea of a exchange rate, okay, is called a floating exchange rate. And in my head, I see a boat on the water, obviously, floating. So when you think about a floating exchange rate, you are thinking about supply and demand. Okay, you're thinking about it being set by the forces of supply and demand, just as any other market, okay, that there is out there. Right? You can start thinking about what's called the most widely traded currencies, which means these are the currencies that people use more often, and quite often you'll be seeing it because of international trade. So most international trade is actually done in US dollars. Right? There's one that's actually left off there at the moment, but that's okay. The euro, because there's a lot of European trade, the Japanese yen, the British pound, because remember, as we said before, the British economy, the UK economy didn't join the euro, right? And that's part of its now leaving of Europe as well, is the fact that it didn't fully commit to joining with Europe. And then, of course, there's the Aussie dollar, the Australian dollar, okay, is quite a heavily traded currency. All of those exchange rates, like a price for the currency, are set then by supply and demand. Fill in the gaps, where you go. This one won't take long. Oh, Zarfan's here. Hello. Good to see you. We were worried about you. There we go, should be getting pretty close to 100%. Waiting on a couple more. Come on, Liz. Come on, Sonny. Have a go. Come on, MK. Nemro. Have a go. All right. Okay. So what are we thinking here? Floating exchange rate is a floating exchange rate is in the foreign exchange market, or Forex. The exchange rates are set by the forces of supply and demand. Let's see what that looks like. Supply, demand, and exchange rate. Goodness me. There it is. So here's an equilibrium exchange rate here in an equilibrium quantity, but we don't really need to worry too much about that. All right, but the exchange rate is the thing that we're really interested in. So here's the demand for the currency, here's the supply of the currency, and here's something's happened. Something has changed, causing the demand curve to shift to the right. So there's been an increase in the demand for this particular currency. As a result, yes, increase in quantity supplied, but there's been an increase here in the actual exchange rate. Okay. Now, do we know what it's called when a floating exchange rate increases in value? Does anybody know what it's called? You've heard the word before. Mum and Dad have probably said it to you. Well, hopefully. I say they've said it to you. They've probably said a variation on the word. Relatively long word beginning with the letter A.
Appreciation.
Yeah, well done. And appreciation is an increase in the value of the currency in terms of another currency. All right, and so that's, you get the word appreciate. All right, so you talk about a currency as having appreciated. You talk about mum and dad appreciating the work that you have done. They appreciated you cleaning your room and looking after little brother or sister. All right, essentially they're saying you've gone up in value in terms of them. Yeah, that's not a, all right, that's the denotation of it. Yeah. You can talk about assets as having appreciated in value, right? Going up, increasing in value. And in this case, an appreciation of a floating exchange rate means that there's been an increase in the value of the currency in terms of another currency. All right, so therefore, have a go at drawing an appreciation. Good work, Yongwei. Well done, Joe. Good work. Looking good. Well done, Farah. Another couple of seconds. All right. Good work, Amy. Remember, Amy, to show it on the axis as well, the change. All right. It's looking good, Delta. All right, so Delta's done a good drawing here, illustrating the increase in demand, all right, for the currency. So this is an appreciation, and you see the appreciation along here. In the exam, if you were to draw these, and you probably aren't likely too much to actually draw them, but it's a good way to explain it. I would actually write the exchange rate on here. So it might be that it's gone from like 0.5 to 0.7, or $1 to $2, and $1 to 2.5, or whatever the actual numbers are. I would actually do them on there. Yeah. Or you could do USD to Malaysian ringgit 1, and then USD to Malaysian ringgit 2. That's sort of an idea, just so that they can see that it's an exchange rate. But very, very well done. All right. Now, please do have practices at these when you can. I know it's not easy doing it on the computer, and there is Wi-Fi issues and all sorts of other things happening. But please do have a go. Last 30 seconds. Right. Good effort, MK. Now, let's go back one. So I'm going to jump back one. Now, that was an increase in demand, and it led to what we call an appreciation. So the word we use is appreciation, an increase in the value of the currency in terms of another currency. But what would happen if this demand curve here wasn't going that way, if it was going that way? What would be happening if we saw a decrease in demand? What would be happening to the exchange rate, and what word would we use? What do you think? What word would you use to describe a decrease in the exchange rate?
Depreciation.
Well done, exactly, a depreciation. So just as you might use in real life the word depreciate to talk about a decline in value of an asset, in this context you're talking about depreciating, or the currency depreciating, or a depreciation of the currency. You're talking about the value of that currency decreasing in terms of another currency. So you see it in the news quite a lot, and they'll use other words as well that might be a bit confusing. They'll talk about strong and weak, or strengthening and weakening. And what they're saying there is if the currency is appreciating, it's getting stronger. If the currency is depreciating, they're saying it's getting weaker. It's a very layman's way to sort of understand it, but you see it in the media quite a bit. They will talk about the strength of the US dollar. And quite often countries will take that as a bit of a badge of honor, right? They'll say, our currency is very strong, woo, yay, right? America, woo, right? Our currency is very weak, oh no, right? They will say those sorts of things, and it won't mean exactly what you think it means, right? It will mean that the currency has appreciated, or is appreciating, and is higher than other currencies that it trades with. And similarly, if they call it weaker, then they say the currency is depreciating or is lower than a lot of the other countries' currencies that it's trading with. Now, we're going to do a bit more of this in IB, but one of the things I want you to get into your head is this idea of if you know what a seesaw is, okay, I'm hoping you do. In America, they call it a teeter-totter, right? And you sit on the thing, and, you know, one person goes down and the other person goes up, and one person goes down and the other person goes up, yeah? So on a seesaw, that's what we're kind of thinking with regards to in our head is an apt metaphor for the Forex market. Because if your currency is appreciating, that means another currency, the other currency that it's trading with, is actually depreciating. And if similarly, if your currency is depreciating, that means the other country's currency that you're trading with is appreciating. That it doesn't happen in isolation, okay? It's not like your currency magically appreciates for no particular reason. If your currency is appreciating, the other currency is automatically depreciating. If your currency is depreciating, the other currency is automatically appreciating. That's quite an important thing to consider, because in the real world, quite often what we see isn't necessarily the economic fundamentals of your country. It's possible that it's the economic fundamentals of the other country that's affecting your currency. So where we saw the Malaysian ringgit and the Indian rupee, right, doing its all up and down roller coaster, it may have had absolutely nothing to do with Malaysia, and it may have had more to do with India. Yeah? And it's like that in many countries. When you talk about the strength of the US dollar, it might be that the reason it is strong is because the other countries that it's trading with, their currencies are quite weak. Right? It also helps that the American currency is the currency that is actually the currency that you trade with more often than not. So it has nothing necessarily to do with how powerful and strong the actual economy is. It might just be that more people are trading and using American currency in order to do that. So we do have to be a little bit critical when we think about it. Now, the floating exchange rate model is one of two models you will be learning. You're going to be learning the other model tomorrow. I'm going to stop sharing. Go back to Meet to see you all. Good to see you all. All right, there was a British game show host back in the 70s and 80s. And one of the things he used to say when he did his game show, it was a quiz show, game show sort of idea. And he used to say, nice to see you, nice. Which was a rather unusual way to say things, but I remember it, right, from all those years ago. Now, the idea that I'm trying to push here is that this is one of two models. You're going to learn the other model. They are relatively complicated in the sense that you've got to understand how the market model works in order to be able to fully grasp how these particular systems work. But also it's a language thing. You've got to talk about the right language. You've got to use words like floating exchange rate, like appreciation and depreciation, like the exchange rate is the rate of currency exchange in terms of the value of the currency, in terms of another country's currency. You've got to use all of that terminology. Now, next week, I would like you to have a practice question on international trade. I'll just pull one, right, from paper 2 and chuck it out. All right, we'll do a bit of a trial using the exam.net because you won't have seen that. All right, it's very straightforward, very easy to do. And it means that I can mark it and get it back to you, and I can, yeah, there's all sorts of other things that we can do with it. And it'll be a good experience, I think, for you to see it, in any case, if you haven't already. So we'll do that, and it's good practice as well in the build-up, in the longer now build-up before your mock exams. Right, now I've also posted a message about whether you want to join the Economic World Cup. All right, that I need to know that realistically today, if there are any others who want to join, because I need to submit the team to the people and say, these are my team. I've got a number of people already in the classroom who have joined, and that's fantastic. I would like a range of ages. The way we used to do this sort of thing in New Zealand is have a range of ages so that younger ones get experience, and then the older ones can help out. And then by the time the younger ones get to become the older ones, then they've had the experience, so they know what it's all about. Yeah. So it might be that you do it a couple of years in a row. Yeah. So that because it's fun. And you get to put it on your CV, and if you do really well at it, then you stand out amongst all of the other people. Right, so we're going to finish there for the day. We've recorded the lesson. You can review it once I've uploaded it. If you have any particular questions, do please ask. Send me an email. Do have a go at finding real-life examples of exchange rates that you can monitor. Keep chipping away at your revision. I know now your mock exams are now another couple of months away. Okay, than they obviously were before, when you would have been right in the middle of them. But that doesn't mean you put off your revision. The more revision you do now, the much better results your mock exams are going to be. They're going to be fantastic, all right? But you need to put in the work now. That's for all of your subjects. And if you're coming across questions you're not sure about, why does this say this, why does this do this, you can email, okay? Otherwise, as we'd say in the land of my birth, hei kōrera, which means goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye. 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 You all right, Fanjing? You're still in the meet, Fanjing? Hmm? Well, what I'm going to do is I will need to remove you from the call because you can't be in here after me.